This is part 2 of painting a sunflower after creating a drawing with my pen. These are the colours that I'm going to use, and you may have noticed that I've removed the flowers because actually I don't want to follow the flowers. I want to put my own colours in and not be restricted by having to continuously look up to see what might be going on in the flowers. So I'm going to actually just paint these flowers using the colours that I want to use, making it nice and bright and painting freely. I've mixed up here some pools of the colours that I've just shown you, and I'm going to actually allow the brush to do the work for me, leaving white paper, little patches of light, creating light, leaving the white paper, and using the brush to create the shapes. I'm working beyond my lines because I can. The lines are not going to move, and this way it will help to keep the picture nice and loose. I haven't decided on a background, whether I'm going to actually pop a background in, but I don't have to be so careful and particular about the way I place the paint, as I've already got my lines created with the pen. Now it needs some warmth in here. The edges of each petal towards the centre tends to get brighter. So I'm actually just dropping these colours in. And this is Cadbury Yellow Deep. Can actually lift back off if you wish. You can now start to put a background in, perhaps, if you wanted to. I still haven't really decided about that. I'm allowing my colours to blend. So I think I'll put the background on last after I've finished and see whether I want to actually do one. But what I am going to do is pop in some centre here. Now, and allow that to blend back up into the petals if necessary. I'm also going to put a little bit of a deeper colour going on as well at the base here. Keep it nice and bright. So that's a transparent orange that I've just popped in. So that's three petal colours going on there. And I've got my salt out to pop a little bit of salt in the centre, which will give it some nice texture. Right, now a bit more to work to do in this next flower. It's more difficult making a pool on a flat plate shape, so I prefer a palette for this really, but there we are. So flat brush, just dropping in these lovely colours. Touching as little as possible, allowing the paint the freedom to move around. Nothing's going to take away from the drawing. Trying to be careful to leave the light. And not to colour in like a colouring book. In fact, I don't see why I shouldn't really let that go there. And let's have a little yellow aura around the sunflowers one side. So with this technique, it's a lovely chance to just try different things and see what happens. Watercolour does love the freedom to just move around. And don't be afraid to move your book around if you can't quite manage to get the shapes that you're looking for. Right, so nice and bright this side, I think. And maybe a bit of shadow this way, I'll see. Try not to cover up my little light patches that I've left. Cad-free yellow deep. I like what's happened there. So this is my brighter side, so popping a little bit more of the transparent orange in there. Letting it move. You can actually tip if you want it to move around a bit more. I'm going to try a little bit of burnt sienna and quinacridone violet this side. Pop it in shadow a little bit underneath here. Not being afraid to allow the depth to create nice dark marks, which is going to give strength to the picture. And we won't know what we've got here until it's finished and until it's dry. Right, while that's drying, I'll try a little bit of the centre here again. Maybe keep this centre a little bit brighter. They're often very dark, but on this particular sunflower, the centre is green and quite light still. So I'm working very wet. That way I won't know what's going on until it's finished. Popping lots of texture in the centre here, and then a little spot of salt, which just needs to be sprinkled on lightly. Don't want big marks. Right, so while that's moving around and creating nice blends for me, I'm going to just tip a bit and then work on the leaf. While it's still wet, you can touch it up and continue to drop colour in, but be careful when it starts to dry. Right, let's try some leaf. So if I work in the direction that I see those marks in the leaf, I'll get some of that nice texture going on in the shapes. And actually there's some colour in these leaves as well, so I'm going to use some of the colours that I've used in the flower. You may have noticed that I'm holding my brush very loosely in the same way that I was holding the pen. That again is going to help me to loosen up and not get fussy with it and not worry about going over the edges, loosening up my picture. It's a very different way of painting, but very enjoyable. The Windsor blue is overtaking with the green a bit today, and that's intentional because I wanted it to be bluer, which will look lovely beside the yellow. Maybe letting some of that run around a bit to create the indication of more leaf or some background stuff. You have to be brave and just let things happen. Not trying to control the paint too much here. And as it dries, you'll see that the watercolour will have made some nice marks, which you don't see until it's dry. So indicating a little bit more yellow going on in the background here and there might sort of give the impression that there might be more little sunflowers starting to come out or just sitting behind. So just popping water in here and there and letting it happen. Nice and dark underneath here at the bottom of the page. So use a large brush, which will prevent fiddling. These little spiky leaves tend to pop out from underneath, so it's quite nice putting a few of them in. So if you haven't got any sunflowers, there'll be sunflowers on Pixabay, I guess, or you may choose to create a painting of a different flower. Or it doesn't have to be a flower. If you want to do a building or something that you may see in Corfu if you're coming to Corfu. Get some practice in with the line and wash this time. So I think that's just about it. I don't really want to start fiddling about changing things. So the only thing I would now do is perhaps put a little bit more depth in here. It's still quite wet. The fact that I use such a lot of water sometimes tends to weaken my washes a bit too much. But if it stays wet, then it's fine to then pop a little bit more in here and there. And I've got to let it dry to take the salt off. Creating a bit more balance at the bottom here. So I'm going to stop and let it dry and then take the salt off and see what we have. There we are. There's my quick version of a sunflower with pen and wash. Let's see what you can do this week. When you actually reach this stage, I've taken the salt off, which has created a little bit of texture. But at this stage, if you wish, you can go back in and create a few more lines. Putting a bit more depth in, a bit more squiggle. That's up to you. Sometimes it needs it. So that's something you can do at the very end. The other thing that you can do at the very end, if it suits your particular picture, is to pop a bit of splattering over it. It gives it a little bit more life and interest. And also gives it a little bit of perspective, because everything then sits behind your splatters. If you've created some that you don't particularly want, you can quickly wipe them away. Maybe some green ones under here. It's the sort of picture that you can just pop different little techniques in just to have a play and see if it looks nice. But maybe try a quick sketch first of something small and simple, but you know, using the same sort of techniques that I've shown you today. You don't have to hurry it. And let's see what you come up with. I'll put some notes on, giving you tips and the way to, you know, use the pen and paint and brush. But endeavour to follow the methods that I've been showing you this month. But as I said, do feel free to choose your own subjects. I'll be with you again next week, but as yet have not decided on a subject, so watch this space. And I hope you enjoy your pen work this week. Take care. Bye-bye.